I made the choice to come stand right here. But could I have done otherwise? Did I have the free will to make a different decision? Could I have stayed home and slept? Could I have come here in worse clothing, I guess? Those are the types of questions that I will be discussing today. Now, first off, I'm just going to go over some terms. So the term was free will. That's what our main topic is about today. Free will is the ability to make a decision unaffected by outside barriers, and in that same situation, could have been a different decision that has been chosen. And if free will does not exist, then our universe goes off of deterministic values, where everything is predetermined up to the point where anything can be predicted if the maximum amount of information is given, and if something can process that information. Now, for the first thing, I want everybody to raise either their right or their left hand. Everyone do it? Alright, now looking around, the majority of you have raised the right hand. Now, that's something that we can all pretty much just assume is because of dominance, right? But because you're dominant, you have a tendency to wave with your right hand. You have a tendency to do all these actions with your right hand. And that's why you have picked those, is because your previous actions have now determined this action. Now, when I was first asked this question, I raised my left hand. Something that I didn't really understand the first time I did it. But after I kept thinking about it, I realized that it's because of my background with baseball. In baseball, we have our mitt on our left hand so we can throw with our right. So every time I went up to catch the ball, that was just ingraining more muscle memory. And because of that action, my action now was to raise my left hand. And that got a ball rolling, where I was thinking about the mind not as something magical that could just make decisions at its own, but what if we're just machines? What if we rely on our past actions to bring forward new ones? So something we can think of where it's more simplistic. We can think of this like something that we have all seen before. Dominoes. I assume that you guys have all seen these before, and you guys have all played with these before. If we set these dominoes up, we know that if we tip one over, the next one will fall over, and the next one, and the next one. Now, if I take the last two, if I knock this one over by itself, it doesn't have any effect on the last one. We can think of this as present day, and this is our start, our birth. But if we bring them back into a series of events that is our life, then every action affects the next one until we reach the last domino. Now, if we were to have this be our present day, at 3 dominoes, after that domino, it would stop. But if we add one more, and another one, this is our life continuing. As we advance in our lives, we make new decisions that aren't our own choices, but are our previous actions determining what we are going to do next. A domino is never going to shift out of place on its own or change direction. We go one direction based on our experiences. There is never something that isn't determined by a previous action. Something that we can think of, also think of this in physical terms, right? With physical objects that we are all very used to. If I drop these dominoes, they all spread out onto the floor in different places. It seems almost random because our brain can't process everything at once. But if we look at a slow motion video of this, we see that as they drop, they hit each other, bounce around, and they go into very direct places based on the dominoes they hit before. We can think of this as everything, right? Our brains cannot just process all this information. So we have to get used to going with the flow of things. Even though it's not so clear, it still happens. If we were to do everything exactly the same, just like I just did, then the dominoes would land in the exact same places. If every atom, every molecule of everything in the universe was exactly the same as it was right now, and I dropped those dominoes again, they would land in the same exact places. This is the same with our actions. Up until this point, right, I may decide to grab that mouse on the ground. I will not, because I don't think there's a need to. But because I have gotten up to that point, because in my previous rehearsals of this, I've never grabbed the mouse, and I realize I don't need to. So that influenced my action not to. Everything is a chain of events that cannot be changed or altered. Therefore, everything in my next few steps of life will stay the same. Now, a question question that I came across was, why does this matter? And reasons for that are very hard to think of at first, but after a while, you start to understand that technology is growing and advancing in an extreme rate that we can't really control yet. AI development is a big thing that's coming into our life with automation. Something that we can't understand is machine learning. It's something that we kind of guess at. In CPG Gray's video, How Machines Learn, he puts it into very simple terms, where a machine learns by a teacher by flipping random switches in the machine's mind, altering the way it sees the world. Afterwards, we don't understand how it works, we just know it does and we use it. Knowing the way that actions affect other actions will help us learn and use this to our advantage so that we can progress faster into a better society. A video I came across a couple years ago was when I saw a video on YouTube of an anvil being dropped off of a 45-meter tower onto a toilet. As ridiculous as it sounds, it brought a lot of new questions into mind that I discussed with my peers. It showed in slow motion the anvil falling onto the toilet and splitting it into thousands of different pieces. All the pieces flying different directions. And when I looked at each picture and I rewinded the video, I thought to myself, this is me retesting this just like I would in science class. In science class, we have a controller where variables are the same, and we have a test group where every variable is the same except one, so we can see what's affecting it. If I'm trying to see if every variable will stay the same in both tests, then all I have to do is rewind the video and see the outcome. Because no variables have changed, all the results were exactly the same. It became clear to me then that this is the same way our minds work. If we go back to our minds, we realize that all we are machines that are learning off of our instincts and off of previous actions. Nothing has changed. Using this to our advantage, we can know that machines will learn based off of how we learn, right? Our minds are machines that use actions to control our judgments, and our judgments are how we learn. We need to continue to learn how these topics work, therefore, so that we can continue to progress in a good manner that will eventually lead us to great success.